Hey guys, it's Roscoe, and on Space Couch today I'd like to talk about water and how it seems there's water everywhere in our solar system. And everywhere there's an icy moon, it seems like there's some accompanying subsurface ocean on that moon. So I thought we'd just run through some of the candidates for subsurface oceans. So, Enceladus, the moon of Saturn, it's that small moon with those beautiful tiger stripes, with all the water shooting out of it. And it turns out that they reckon, recently, in the last week or so, that it could be hot hydrothermal vents causing this activity, rather than just, say, the gravity of Saturn when it's going through its orbit, stretching it and contracting it, and that's what's been pushing the water out. So, if that's the case, there's hot hydrothermal vents on the, I guess you'd call it the ocean floor. That would very much help the search for life. On Earth, these black smokers, as they're called, on the ocean floor, they are oases of life. The hotness from the hydrothermal vents from the volcanoes underneath heats up the water. The nutrients from the water being in contact with a rocky surface has helped life on this planet. And obviously we don't know if that's happened elsewhere, but it would be a good candidate for that. So that's Enceladus, one of my favourite moons of the solar system, by the way. Next, Ganymed, the moon of Jupiter, the largest moon in the solar system. It's actually about the size of Mars. I forget if it's just slightly bigger or just slightly smaller, but that's about the size of it. And obviously it has its own magnetic field. It's now thought to have a subsurface salty ocean. They found this out very recently, where they're saying if there's an ocean under the surface, then the aurora caused by the magnetic sphere that Ganymed has would go up and down, wobble across the planet by a certain number of degrees, and it's at 6 degrees. If there's a salty ocean underneath, because obviously that can conduct electricity, that would slow down the wobble of the aurora. So they made their measurements, and it turns out it only wobbles by 2 degrees, the aurora on Ganymed. So that suggests, or that confirms rather, that there is indeed a subsurface salty ocean on that moon. Now, another of the moons of Jupiter, Europa, perhaps one of the more famous ones in the search for life, has often been thought of as the most likely place to find water-based life in the solar system. It's got a huge ocean under its surface ice, more water than the whole of Earth, easily. Most of these icy worlds do have more water than the moon anyway. You can tell there's water under the surface on Europa. That cracked terrain that it has, it's like the Arctic pack ice, it keeps shifting around for the movement of the water underneath, slip sliding and going over and off each other. And then any asteroid impacts or whatever, the water wells up, freezes, and brighter surfaces, and also it's covered in that kind of red sort of, I don't know what that is, I'd say fungus, but it's not fungus. The nutrients from underneath, they've like stained the surface of that moon. Yeah, so Europa, very interesting, and there's talk obviously of some craft to go to Europa. It's the JUICE Icy Moons Explorer. I can't remember if is that the NASA one or the European Space Agency. The other one being, I think, the Europa Clipper. So that's not going to be launching for at least 10 years, and then could be another 10 years for it to get to Jupiter, depending on the route they're taking. But yes, we should definitely have another look at some of those icy moons of Jupiter. Another one of which, the fourth moon out of the main Galilean moons of Jupiter, is Callisto. And that's the one that just looks pockmarked everywhere. A bit like Ceres, actually, which I'll speak about in a moment. It could also be a good place to look for life. They reckon it's got a subsurface ocean also, about 100 kilometres beneath the ice. And this could be good because it's much further out from the other Galilean moons from Jupiter, so the radiation from Jupiter doesn't drench it in all that bad stuff. So that could be a good location for a manned base on the surface to explore the outer solar system in due course. Now, moving on to Saturn, its moon Titan, which was a long time thought to be the largest moon in the solar system, is actually the second largest after Ganymed. It's also thought to have a subsurface water ocean. That's interesting because it's got surface moisture and liquids, lakes, rivers and seas, but they're more of methane and ethane and hydrocarbons because of how cold it is there. Now, that could be quite interesting because that would be, imagine if, like, say, there's some little microbes or whatever swimming along in those cold hydrocarbon oceans, and in the subsurface water oceans, there's also little microbes or fish or squid or whatever wriggling around. So, independent life twice on one world, that would be huge news. I certainly would be amazed if that was the case. That would be awesome. Now, Ceres, which I mentioned briefly, the NASA Dawn mission, it's gone into orbit around it now. No pictures at the moment because how it's orbiting, we're just seeing the dark side of Ceres, the unlit portion. So it's going to be another 2 or 3 weeks, I think, before we start to see those really close-up pictures of the sunlit side. Maybe we'll find out what those craters are, those bright spots in that crater. Obviously, Ceres itself is not an icy moon. It's a dwarf planet, an icy dwarf planet. They reckon that it's got more fresh water as water or ice than the whole of the Earth. Another one that's got more water than the whole of the Earth. It does seem like there is water everywhere, doesn't it? So Ceres, it's going to be amazing to see. They reckon that it doesn't necessarily have a subsurface ocean now, but probably more slushy ice. And because of its composition of Ceres, it may not have a big enough rocky core to either generate heat from the radioactive decay of the elements or from friction of the rocky core with the ice or water for nutrients and black smoke, as I was speaking about for the other worlds. Now, another one fascinating, I can't wait to see properly, is Pluto and Charon double planet system. So the NASA New Horizons mission is on its way there. We're starting to get some very long-range pictures of it. You know, it's just dots orbiting around each other. Orbiting around the common centre of gravity, not around each other. July is when we're going to have the flyby, but obviously we'll know what it looks like long before then. So they're both icy planets, icy worlds, I should say. So could there be an internal ocean on one of them? Maybe due to the tidal forces? I don't know how strong it is because they're orbiting around this common centre of gravity rather than Charon's orbiting around Pluto. I don't know if that would cause enough tidal stresses. Could be quite interesting. It would be very interesting if they did. Unlike the Earth-Moon double planet system, which also orbits around the common centre of gravity, but that common centre of gravity is located within the sphere of the Earth. For Pluto and Charon, the centre of gravity isn't on either of those bodies, it's in space. So we'll see. Very exciting to see those pictures. I mean, how many more moons are they going to discover of Pluto, I wonder? Will it have rings? Will there be evidence for a subsurface ocean on either of those planets? If we see some of that chaotic looking terrain on either of them, that would be an indication there is an ocean that far out that hasn't totally frozen over. It'd be quite amazing. Could be cryovolcanism, ice volcanoes, for instance, caused by those tidal stresses. I guess we'll find out. Another one of the little icy worlds of the solar system is Mimas. That's the Death Star moon. I remember seeing the first pictures of that when it came out at the very end of the 1970s. Star Wars had just come out a couple of years before. No one had seen this moon previous to that movie. So when we first saw the picture, oh my god, it looks just like the Death Star. And it kind of does with that huge, is it Herschel crater, I think, that's like 1/3 of the diameter of the whole small moon. And I think it's one of the, if not the smallest body in the solar system to have actually hydrostatically compressed equilibriumly into a round spheroid shape for the most part. So, what else? There's also that asteroid Charon. Well, is it an asteroid? Is it an icy body? It kind of exhibits comet-like and asteroid-like features called Chariklo. And the reason you may have heard of the, we'll call it asteroid, say, Chariklo, is because it has rings, just like all the gas giants and possibly other planets as well. So that must have been caused by an impact on the surface of that body, throwing up ice that's then gone into orbit around it, because I think when they measured the rings during an occultation, I think they came back as more water ice based rather than, say, rock. I'm I can stand corrected on that, however. So it's very possible, we won't know this for a long time, that given all the places where there's fresh water or salty water, or where there's a possibility for water to come into contact with heat, that there could be life there. That would mean it would have started many times just within our own solar system. And how awesome would that be? And God knows what else is out there in the Kuiper Belt or the Oort cloud. Obviously, as I mentioned, there are some probes destined to explore these icy moons. Obviously, there's the New Horizons is going further out into the Kuiper Belt. Once it's gone past Pluto, it will hopefully rendezvous or fly past, I expect, one or more Kuiper Belt objects. It'll be much smaller than Pluto, probably about 50 kilometres across, so giant rocks basically, but that would still be really interesting. So, the Europa Clipper, the JUICE mission, obviously, next couple of decades, maybe we will find out if there is actually life elsewhere in our solar system. I mean, that's assuming, of course, that those lights on Ceres don't turn out to be alien cities, or they finally discover those microbes on Mars, or they realise that the methane that's being produced on Mars is being caused by some sort of life form. We'll see, it's highly unlikely, but hey, all the amazing discoveries that we've had so far, who knows what's to come. Anyway, guys, I thought you'd enjoy just this quick little review of some of the icy worlds of the solar system. As always, please subscribe to my channel, leave a comment or reception below, or like my video.